G'day guys, Jake here from Journey Van Builds. Without proper planning, how we source, store and access water can quickly become a daily headache while living on the road. The plumbing system in this Toyota Hiace conversion packs in so many useful features like a large water tank, external filling port and an undermounted grey water tank that keeps life as enjoyable as possible on the road. I'm going to run you through each of the components that make this system so practical, as well as address a few of the difficulties that I had while installing this system. Packed into this corner is the water inlet feeding our 42-litre fresh water tank. That then supplies the 21 series Seaflow inline water pump after running through a little strainer for debris. The plumbing then tees off to the bidet hose outlet at the side door, as well as servicing the cold water tap in the corner of the van with the sink. Once the water runs down the sink, it goes down through the floor of the van into the grey water tank mounted underneath the van, ready to be released at a suitable location. Straight away, I love that the whole plumbing system takes up such a small footprint within the van. It is so compact that it all fits underneath the sink area there. And not only that, but it's actually utilizing really well that back corner in the cabinetry, which is notoriously incredibly difficult to use efficiently in the conversion because of such terrible access that you have back there in the corner of the van. The external water inlet was something I was really excited about this plumbing system, because that feature by itself means that the water tanks in the van actually never have to be accessed other than in emergency or for maintenance. So that's kind of the feature that allows me to tuck this whole plumbing system away in that back corner where it isn't really accessible on a day-to-day basis, but that's completely fine because we have external filling possibilities. My intention was to refill this system with a hose that I would carry on board. The reality is more like a 10-litre water jug because I, for whatever reason, haven't tended to carry the hose on board with me. And it's also not too frequent that I have access to a tap with the correct thread. So I've tended to just carry around a 10-litre water jug that I'll walk across a park and fill up wherever I need to, and then pour that into the inlet with a funnel that I have on board as well. While traveling in my first van conversion with a 20-litre fresh water tank, I identified pretty quick that that was something I wanted to upgrade in my next one, because it was one of my biggest restrictions as far as going off grid and also creating more general van upkeep, and just something I needed to be aware of quite frequently. Unfortunately, all of the water tanks that are larger than 20 litres are designed for larger van conversions like a Sprinter, or better yet, to be mounted underneath a van, which meant that they all had really long, narrow, slim forms, which is terrible for fitting into a Hiace conversion efficiently. After hours of searching the internet, I finally found a really compact 42-litre freshwater tank, which was going to fit my cabinetry absolutely perfectly. Although this tank was quite a bit more expensive than the standard tanks you can find on Amazon, the fact that it was doubling the capacity and therefore halving the amount that I had to think about water on a day-to-day basis meant that it was worth it for me. The only issue I would say I had with this particular tank was the fact that it doesn't come with any inlets or outlets built into it, and so I had to create those myself, which is certainly doable. It just takes a little bit more handiwork. Right before the pump, there's a little debris strainer, which pretty much speaks for itself. I'm sure every pump manufacturer recommends having one of these in there. It's just in case any bits of dirt or plastic get into your system that it won't make it through to the pump and damage it. The heart of the whole system is a Seaflow 21 series inline water pump. Now, after using a submersible pump for my last build, I found that the inline pump was a little bit cleaner and had a couple of benefits that I preferred over the submersible pumps. The negative of the inline pumps, like the 21 series Seaflow, is that they are quite a bit louder than submersible pumps. Now, I know for a first-time van lifer that can be quite off-putting, but the reality is that you do get used to it, and that noise while you are actually running water in that moment is kind of just the price you pay for having running water in your van without having a crazy expensive build. The two benefits that I like for this inline pump are, first of all, it has an inbuilt pressure switch, which makes things really easy if you have multiple outlets like I do with my bidet hose at the side door and the sink inside the van. Is basically, if either of those sources is turned on, the pump itself will sense that drop in pressure in the system and kick into life and, create water flow. Otherwise, you would have to have an individual switch at each one of your tap and your hose to be turning that pump on, like sort of manually each time. But this kind of just streamlines everything a little bit better. The other benefit for the inline pump, which is absolutely huge, is the fact that it can run dry without damaging itself. The fact of the matter is, at some point, your pump is going to run dry. It's the same with a leisure battery running empty. As good as our intentions are, at some point, these things are just going to happen in van life. And so it's just a little bit of insurance to know that if that does happen, it's not going to completely destroy your whole system. A final thing that I'll say about the pump is it's definitely worthwhile to have a little kill switch. You can actually see mine right here next to me on the bench here. That is just basically in case of emergencies or maintenance. It's just a really good idea to have one that you can completely cut the power to that pump if you should need to, because again, another little bug with the pressure switch is sometimes, very rarely, it can just turn on by itself, which could potentially happen in the middle of the night, for example, and scare the shit out of you. Or if you've left your van for a long time as well, it could come on randomly and just be running. And there's only so long it can run dry before it will get damaged, of course. Bearing in mind, I think that's happened 3 times to me in 12 months living in the van. Now, finally, onto using the water in the system. If you've seen my kitchen walkthrough video, then you know that the access to running water at the side door there is one of the biggest changes that I made from my first conversion, and it's absolutely one of my favorites. Originally, I put the bidet hose at the side door there because it really frustrated me having to climb back into the van every time I wanted to fill up my drink bottle. If you're just about to head out on a hike or down to the beach or something and you're all ready to go and to have to climb back up into the van. It may sound like a small thing, but it was just annoying. So that's why I put it in. I also loved the idea of being able to wash your feet after the beach, maybe rinse a surfboard. But it's turned out I'll use it pretty much every day while cooking as well. So just a really, really practical inclusion into the plumbing system. And like I said, if I had to pick one water source, it would be the external hose at the side door there. Moving inside the van, the cold water tap and the sink, honestly, didn't really receive a lot of love from me in the design process. And it does kind of just feel like they're there out of necessity. But with that being said, they are kind of essential, because basically if you are doing any stealth camping, if you're just stuck in your van at nighttime, or if you're stuck in your van while it's raining, it's really, really handy to have access to water inside the van, of course. And also the sink itself, while let's be honest, I'm not using it to do my dishes. I'm not doing dishes inside this van. It's way too cramped. The sink is way too small, but it is really handy just to have a sort of wet area that you can chuck things if you're in a rush, if you need to drive somewhere quickly after eating, just to be able to throw everything in the sink and go and deal with it later. When it comes to the tap that I use, you pretty quickly realize that all of the campervan taps are just incredibly ugly. And to use anything else, I kind of wasn't really comfortable with, because I didn't want a tap that had the option for hot and cold water, because this is just a cold water system, and that kind of just bugged me. So I've just gone for a cold water tap. This is the simplest, cheapest one I could find, because there's nothing else is really necessary other than just to look good for Instagram, to be honest. It's a similar story for the sink there. All of the campervan sinks are made out of that really ugly white plastic, and they're all insanely expensive, if you ask me. All I've done for this sink, it's a stainless steel container that you find in Bain Marie's that like hold hot food. So I just bought one of those off a kitchen supplies website. I cut my own hole in the middle and then installed my own little drain in there. And it was a super cheap sink that I actually think looks a little bit better than all the really ugly plastic ones. And it just sort of does the job. It's not going to blow you away, but it serves its purpose. The next component is one of the biggest space savers for the whole van conversion. If you're researching plumbing online, then I know you're watching all of the Sprinter conversions, jealous of their massive water tanks that they're able to just mount underneath the van. Well, the good news is that I've figured out a way to do that for the grey water in a smaller van like my Hiace here. The 20-litre grey water tank for this van is mounted underneath the van in the footwell on the driver's side, where the sliding door would be if there was one. So this is obviously unused space underneath the van. The reason people hesitate to use this space is because there is actually a metal divider in the middle of the footwell, which means that the standard 50-litre water tanks that you find on Amazon, which are really cheap, don't actually fit there without making some structural alterations. The way around this is to simply use a much smaller 20-litre jerry can from your local hardware store. They are super cheap and they're the perfect size. The only issue with using a jerry can is that you will have to create your own inlets and outlets, but similar to the fresh water tank, like I mentioned earlier, it's absolutely doable if you're just willing to get in there and give it a go. Also, there is a massive misconception that you should have the same size grey water tank as your fresh water tank. I can tell you that that is just absolutely not true, and especially in a smaller conversion like a Hiace here. The fact of the matter is that the amount of water that you are drinking or using for cooking in your food is far more than the amount of water that you actually lose down the sink. In fact, I can tell you in my personal experience living with this exact system for over a year now is that I will refill this 42-litre freshwater tank more than twice as often as I will empty my 20-litre grey water tank. Practically making this happen involved cutting a 25mm hole in the floor of the van for the grey water tube to fit down from the sink, and it also involved bending some steel, some nut rivets and some bolts underneath the van. It was all relatively simple, but it's certainly out of the scope of this video to cover that. So let me know in the comments if that's something you'd like to see, how I've actually gone about mounting that, and I can prioritize getting that video out for you. I told you that I would address some of the things that I would change in this system if I had the chance, and that is coincidentally the last component of this whole system, which is the hoses and fittings that I've used. Basically, what happened to me is I jumped in a bit too quick and bought a bunch of different components like my pump and my tank fittings, inlets and outlets, and basically they just weren't compatible, which meant I spent a lot of time going into stores, multiple different stores, researching online, trying to find the bits that would convert one fitting into another. So that was an absolute headache, and it genuinely was more difficult for me than the whole 12-volt system in this van. The way that professional fit outs avoid this problem is by making sure that all of their components are using the one system ahead of time. For example, the most common system, which is recognizable by the blue hose that you've seen in my build, is the John Guest system. That's also what I recommend personally. It's a really intuitive, just sort of snap together system that you can also easily detach and remove to make changes on the fly, and it's really dependable as far as leaks are concerned as well. That's a really good system that I was trying to sort of convert everything over to, but like I said, there was just way too many different pieces involved and it became a bit of a nightmare. So that's a video that I'm really looking forward to making on my next build, where I've figured all that out and I can give you guys a really simple system as far as the connections and fittings goes. Until then, I don't really have any answers for you right now, other than just to do your research with what fittings are compatible with the different components that you're buying for your build. If you're willing to put a little bit more time and effort into the building process for a system that's just going to work day in, day out with no fuss at all, then I'm sure that you can take something away from this build. If you're designing your own system, head to the Journey Van Builds website for a full product list of everything that you've seen in this video, as well as a heap of other cool resources. And let me know in the comments what videos you'd like to see from me next. Thanks for watching. Catch you on the next one.